Hello, everybody. This is Catholic Dad, episode number 163, Polish Catholics, the ones caught in the middle. Now, I'm not talking about Polish Catholics, but I'm making an analogy to Poland. Poland's caught between the communists and the Nazis in World War II. And there's some of us that are kind of caught between them within the Catholic Church as well. And what do I mean by this, by the way? And by the way, Poland had a really bad piece of real estate, right? In the East, it was the commies, Soviet Russia, and in the West, it was the German Nazis. And they were stuck right in the middle trying to be faithful, loyal stewards of the church. And so this is just an analogy or a metaphor. So who are the Nazis of the church? Well, the Nazis of the church are the dying-to-wool traditionalists that, some of them have even become heretical. You know, they state that the chair of Peter's empty. There's no current pope, and they're waiting for a new pope to come. That's a heretical position in the church. Should not be followed, and everybody needs to be wary with that one. But then you have the communists in the East, right? They're the hippy dippies that they want to normalize every illicit behavior within the church. Things like contraception, abortion, all sorts of marriage, divorce, you name it, right? They just want to rewrite the entire history of the church because that's what communists do. You know, they kind of want to tear down the order, the old order, the tradition, and the old guard, and they're trying to make it new and fun and happy and simple, where nobody really has any kind of responsibility towards the tradition of the faith. And then there's some of us caught in the middle who we're dying to live a sacramental life, and we want to live a sacramental life. And but we don't want the hippy dippy stuff, right? We kind of like, hey, it's good to be married, it's good to have children, it's good to live a sacramental life, it's good to be obedient to the church and the magisterium, and be a loyal son of the church or a loyal daughter of the church. And we will do as the church says in matters of faith and morals, even if we disagree with it, because by the virtue of obedience, that's what we do, right? And then there's on the other end, we're trying to keep away the hippy dippy stuff, but then we're trying to not tell the magisterium how to run its house, right? Being the Germans, we're going to go march in and tell them what to do and how to do it. Those of us in the middle, we're in Poland, right? And we don't want fights with anybody, right? It's really funny. We want to just live a sacramental life, and we want to trust that the promise that God gave, that he would overlook it over his church, and hell will never prevail over it. We kind of want to believe that promise is true. And some of us, when we raise big families and whatever else, we want to believe that we don't have to sit there and study and study and study to try to figure out if the magisterium's going astray or not. Because really, I have responsibility to my family. I'm a provider. I'm the protector. Leader of the spiritual life of the family. And really, there's some things through the virtue of obedience that I have to trust that the church has done right. I've gotten in a conversation, and frankly, if this guy's listening to it, about the Novus Ordo Mass, I go to the Novus Ordo Mass. I do love the Mass of Pius V, the Trinity Rite, the traditional Latin Mass. I love that. In fact, in some ways I prefer that, but there's really no easy access to it where I'm at. And so I use the Novus Ordo Mass because I trust the last four popes are correct when they've actually celebrated the Latin Mass, and I don't need any fights from anybody, but I kind of want the hippy dippies to know, they should probably not try to push the envelope of the moral teachings of the church. And I kind of want to let the traditionalists know that, obedience is hard. It's damn hard. It's like the highest virtue. It's hard to do. Why? Because pride is so darn strong, right? And so that's the deal, right? It's like it's really hard to be a loyal, obedient son of the church when you got people yelling at you from the East and Soviet Russia that you need to make yourself more liberal and more available to the changing times. And then people yelling at the West that you have no clue about the rubrics of the church, and you don't know how the magisterium runs its office, and therefore you have to actually stand up and yell at the magisterium and yell at the Pope and papal bash and whatever else. I don't like that. I think as an obedient son of the church, I'm going to live my sacramental life. I'm going to trust that the magisterium's intact, and I'm going to trust the Holy Spirit inspires it, and he watches over the church. and that the church is watched over, and if there's any kind of irregularities within the current teachings of the church, that that will be sorted out, and they will go away. There's been all sorts of bumps in the road in the history of the church. The Avignon papacy, and nobody knew where the Pope was at certain points in time. Eventually, I think it was Catherine, Saint Catherine came and got him, brought him back to Italy, and said, you have to be in Rome. That's where the center of Christendom is. And so, well, anyway, there's been bigger bumps in the road than what we have today. But so I, as an obedient son of the church, I don't want to be convinced of the illicit ills of the Soviet Russians, meaning the hippy dippies in our church, and I don't want to be told that I have no understanding of the Rubiks and the history of the church from the Nazis in the West, because man, I'm not playing the middle here. I just don't know what to do, and if I don't know what to do, what do? I look toward the church and see what the magisterium says. And if 4 popes in a row have practiced the Novus Ordo, well, then that's good enough for me, versus the 50,000 or 100,000 or maybe 500,000 traditionalist Catholics out there that are yelling and screaming about the other billion Catholics that are doing it wrong. The Pope will sort that one out in the future, and if you kind of think he already has, but and if it needs a statement, that will be made as well. And so this is Catholic Dad making you think about it. Be a Polish Catholic. Stick yourself in the middle of a sacramental life. Don't try to punch the hierarchy in the face or bash them and tell them how horrible they are. And oh, by the way, don't live in the ills of today and the moral ills of today. Don't try to be of this world, Try to be different from this world, but go into this world. And that's how you convert people, by the way. You don't convert people by yelling at them in either direction. And so you convert people by living a sacramental life and loving your neighbor like yourself. And that's it. Okay, this is Catholic Dad making you think about it. Please like or subscribe and share with your friends, and have a nice day. Okay.